This is Mr. Raman speaking. Please listen.
You need to get out of bed if you want to survive. You've got to go to work or get a P45. But the temptation's strong to lie there and sky. So why not bring the boss with a plausible lie? 97.1, The Breakfast Show on Metro FM.
It's 1999. Tony Horne in the morning is back at it with another wind-up, jolting Leasington Colliery out of bed and blasting Womack and Womack for what feels like the 100th time. Marky Mark is tracking the traffic and travel from Starburst 1, and before long, Alan Robson will stroll into the studio to prep for his legendary evening show, Night Owls. Night Owls was the North East institution. Anyone could call in, and did, to talk about anything. Alcoholism, loneliness, ghosts, UFOs, quizzes, even the odd bit of singing. Nothing was really off limits, just dial 488-3188. This was local radio at its peak, when around 1 in 2 people in the North East tuned in to Metro Radio from their Swalwell headquarters, which hosted celebrities such as Elton John, Johnny Cash and Shania Twain. Metro also spun off such corgas such as Tony Horne's Wind-Ups and Punching Above Your Weight, in which the most aesthetically mismatched couples were asked to enter and win a holiday for 2. So where did it all go wrong for Metro Radio? The radio station was renamed in 2024 as Hits Radio Northeast and now has no Northeast dedicated broadcasts following the departure of Stephen Carron. Let's take a look at the history of this iconic radio station, revisit some of its greatest moments and reflect on whether its evolution was simply an inevitable sign of the times or yet another example of the Northeast losing a key piece of its cultural identity.
This is Metro Radio, 261 metres in the medium wave band and 97 VHF. The time is 6 o'clock, and to officially open the station, here is the Managing Director, Mr. Bruce Lewis.
On the morning of July 15th, 1974, at exactly 6 a.m, a new sound entered homes across Tyne and Wear, South Northumberland and North County Durham. Metro Radio, officially named the Metropolitan Broadcasting Company Limited, MBC, was the 6th independent local radio station to launch in the UK. Broadcasting initially from Radio House, Swalwell, Metro would transmit on 261 medium wave 11:52 a.m. and 97.0 FM in stereo. The station's first programme was The Breakfast Show, hosted by Don Dwyer, an Australian, and Harry Rowell, formerly of Tyne Television's news department. The first show included messages of congratulations from Kenny Everett at the equivalent local commercial station in London, Capital Radio. Metro's early output was very different from the pop-focused commercial stations that would follow. Its format leaned heavily towards speech-based content, news, regional current affairs, children's programming and documentaries. Music, particularly pop, was not a priority. This approach was shaped by the regulatory environment of the time. The financial results, less so. Metro Radio's beginnings were quickly tested by harsh commercial realities. Young listeners largely remained loyal to BBC Radio 1 and Radio Luxembourg. Heavy restrictions on music, known as needle time limits, further hindered the station's ability to appeal to mass audiences. For many, the station sounded confused, too serious and not attuned to what local people wanted to hear. News bulletins aired not just hourly, but twice an hour. There were up to 13 journalists on staff, supported by multiple producers, announcers and technical operators. Behind the scenes, the lack of a programme director and internal disagreement about the station's direction compounded the difficulties. By late 1974, just months after its launch, Metro was facing a financial crisis. Emergency changes followed. Neil Robinson took over as managing director, replacing Bruce Lewis, and the station began to pivot gradually toward more music-driven output. The reinvention wasn't instantaneous. Canadian consultant Tim Burge introduced music clocks and station playlists. A new tagline emerged. Gentle on your mind. But real success came when Metro decided to take Radio 1 head-on. A research-led decision saw Metro adopt a top 40 style format, shedding much of its documentary-heavy scheduling. Programmes like Chartwise, introduced by Giles Squire, began to compete directly with national broadcasters. Each weekday featured a different chart: the UK, the US, a local Northeast chart, and even the Euro parade. Gradually, audiences returned. Metro Radio began to outperform Radio 1 in key time slots. It took staff redundancies, restructuring, but by 1984, Metro Radio was the most listened to station in the Northeast. It had taken a decade, but the transformation was complete.
Stereo 97, more music on, more music Metro!
Metro's success owed much to its presenters, who became some of the most recognisable voices in the region. Giles Squire, central to both programming and on-air innovation. James Whale, who originated the Night Owls programme, an overnight talk format later immortalised by Alan Robson, who would remain its host for over 2 decades. Steve Coleman, a regular on Metro's breakfast show.
Steve Coleman, Metro, all your favourite music.
Known for his chemistry with co-hosts and later role at Century FM. Brian Clough, whose Country Jamboree and Friday Night Country Crowd brought American roots music to loyal weekend audiences. And Dave Porter, who hosted a wide variety of shows.
More music Metro!
Metro's programming through the late 80s and 90s reflected a finely tuned balance between popular music, community service and local culture. Hits Not Homework.
It's not homework.
It's not homework.
Metro FM.
Heart to Heart, The Countdown Hour, Dance Decades, Love in the Afternoon.
Love in the afternoon. Metro
And First Beat built daily structure. Specialist shows like Folk Show with Jed Grimes, In Classical Mood with Laurie Giles, and The Sound of Beautiful Music with Ray Anderson maintained Metro's unique character. Then there was the Northeast Night Shift, a syndicated late-night show that ran from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. By 1989, Metro Radio had split its output. On FM 97.1,
A better mix of music. 97.1 Metro
came Metro FM, a younger music-driven service. On AM 1152 came Great North Radio, a station catering to an older audience with a golden oldies format which would later go on to be Magic. This change wasn't optional. It came as part of a national policy shift, ending the practice of simulcasting, where the same content aired simultaneously on AM and FM. Each frequency now needed to offer something different. Great North Radio offered 40 years of hits, music from the 1950s through to the 1980s. Meanwhile, Metro FM leaned into a tighter pop playlist, following the top 40 trends and engaging a younger demographic.
Chartwise, Metro FM.
As the station matured into the 1990s, so too did its presenting lineup. Steve Coleman remained a familiar presence on the Metro FM breakfast show. Alan Robson, already a key figure from the late 80s, continued to host Night Owls, Metro's long-running late-night talk show.
And you're there. We have Jeff from Benwell. Hiya, Jeff.
Well, I'll tell you, two CDs I've gained.
Alan gave the show a unique intimacy, as if you knew him and he was part of the family. Regular callers became part of that extended shared family, especially during late hours when listeners often needed connection the most. We'd often get Night Owls callers to our home phone, being only 2 digits different from the Night Owls number.
Well, thank you very much for calling anyway.
I'll see you.
Look forward to talking to you next week. 0191 488 3188.
Alan received an NBE from the Queen in 1994 for services to broadcasting. Other key presenters during the 90s included Lee Finan and Ingrid Hogman, co-hosts of Hits Not Homework, which targeted teenagers with a blend of current hits and chat.
Ingrid and Lee, Metro FM.
Lewis Clark, who moved from weekend shows to weekday slots, eventually becoming a programme controller, Mark Forrest, David Prever and Tim Smith, part of a refreshed daytime schedule. Specialist programmes still held space on the schedule, but by this point, chart and contemporary music dominated the daytime airwaves. Despite industry changes, Metro FM remained rooted in its community. Christmas appeal and charity auction, launched in the 70s, continued into the 90s. One such appeal raised over 33 grand for local causes in a single year. Metro was also known for its on-the-ground visibility, whether at summer exhibitions, roadshows or charity events. The station's traffic helicopter, Starburst 1, piloted by Margie Mark, was also a memorable presence in the skies, giving regular travel reports during the breakfast and drive time shows. In 1996, Metro's independence came to an end when EMAP, the East Midlands Allied Press, acquired the station. The group had already bought several regional outlets, and Metro became part of a larger commercial network. And who can forget Tony Horne, his wind-ups and that infamous 1997 Teaspoon song that was on constantly.
First class on the way to Australia, but unfortunately, Sting has booked 12 seats for his entourage.
Has he? You just totally bullshit.
Tony Horne presented Metro Radio's flagship breakfast programme, Tony Horne in the Morning, for 6 years. He was known for his outspoken style and distinctive on-air approach, which helped the show reach an audience of around 200,000 weekly listeners. It was a staple of my childhood. I even purchased the wind-up CD. By 2005, Metro Radio moved from its long-standing home at Radio House, Swalwell, to more modern studios in the city centre of Newcastle upon Tyne, within the 55 Degrees North building, overlooking the central motorway. The building change marked a symbolic shift from the suburban industrial estate of its early years to a more corporate metropolitan setting. In 2007, Bauer Media Group acquired EMAP's radio assets. The acquisition marked the beginning of a gradual move towards national branding. In 2011, Horne's time at the station came to an end. After what turned out to be his final broadcast, Metro Radio announced his departure, stating that Horne was leaving. His exit came 5 months before his contract was due to finish, following reported disagreements with management about his style of broadcasting. Moore and Anna Foster would take over the breakfast show in the interim until Steve Furnell and Karen Oxley were announced as his replacement. The Steve and Karen Breakfast Show launched on Metro Radio on 6th of June 2012 and was hugely successful with features such as Chava Tunes and the Wonky Minute, as well as Punching Above Your Weight, which asked aesthetically mismatched couples to enter for the chance to win a holiday. In recent years, Metro Radio has been folded into the Hits Radio network. While some local elements remain, such as traffic reports and regional news bulletins, the content is largely shared with other Bauer stations across the UK. The Steve and Karen Breakfast Show continue through the 2024 rebrand of Metro to Hits Radio in 2025, remaining in place on the breakfast schedule. However, in March 2025, Bauer confirmed that regional Hits Radio breakfast shows would end in June, to be replaced with a single national programme for England and Wales. Steve and Karen continued broadcasting together, moving to host a new national breakfast show on Hits Radio 90s, produced from Bauer's Newcastle studios. Metro Radio was more than a station. It was the sound of the North East, from the sound of your drunk relative calling in to Alan Robson at 1 a.m, to somebody losing their rag on Tony Horne's wind-ups, to love songs on a Sunday afternoon. No other North East radio station came close. Was the sanitisation and nationalisation of Metro Radio to Hits Radio just an inevitable sign of the Spotify listening oversaturated media world, or yet another example of lost North East culture, gone the same way as the likes of the Tuxedo Princess, the Mayfair, Metroland or even Geordie Jeans? Because this wasn't just a rebrand, it's another step in stripping away local identity in favour of a uniform national product. Metro Radio used to sound like Newcastle Gateshead in the North East. Now it sounds like everywhere else.
On Metro Radio.